The bean mouth style, also known by misguided people who don't change their opinions as the Cal art style. It's a trend that's consumed cartoons since the 2010s, namely those made for major television channels like Cartoon Network, Disney, and I'd say Nickelodeon, but they've maintained visual variety throughout the decade because they still kill everything that's not SpongeBob or the misadventures of the Gojo clan. Oh, never mind. I've given my pros and cons of bean mouth over the years. I refute the idea that all new cartoons look the same because the ones that share bean mouth do all have intricacies in their art direction that cause them to stand out from one another. It's not Hanna-Barbera levels of egregiousness, but I do think it's fair to say that the bean mouth is used as a base for a lot of characters, especially the leads. I have no qualms of how these shows look, but I do miss when every show felt like the creator's distinct art style being brought to life, whereas the bean mouth trend has reined things in for efficiency, so now art styles start to feel more like a compromise. Talking strictly about character design, something like Invader Zim was unapologetically Jonan Vasquez, whereas something like Steven Universe was not completely Rebecca Sugar's style at the time. It was more so aspects of their style applied to a design that's less complex to animate. And in theory, the more simplified designs can help artists and animators do some cool stuff that might have been hard to pull off back in the day. I feel like non-action cartoons in the last 15 years had more moments of smooth animation and perspective changes than in the 2000s, and the designs are at least a factor. However, even if I personally adore bean mouth, I'm always gonna prefer variety. Something more personal. My favorite art styles, whether it's cartoons, anime, manga, or comics, are the styles that feel like an extension of someone's soul. An artist's quirks and sensibilities shouldn't just peek through a character design when it's their show, you know? It should just be the design. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about why this style took over in the first place. We know it's for efficiency, but who's settled on this approach? Artists, executives, or a third party? Well, after a decade of discourse, we actually have a solid answer. As Daron Nefcy, the creator of Star vs. the Forces of Evil, recently shared some elite ball knowledge on Twitter, and I find it to be pretty insightful and fascinating, so I wanted to share it with all of you. Let's talk about the truth behind bean mouth cartoons. Sorry for turning your tweets into content, Daron. I just think more people should know about this. So Daron found out about the whole bean mouth thing and had some thoughts to share. I think it's really funny she just found out about all this when we're almost a decade into this discourse, and Star is one of the shows people often point to when talking about the bean mouth style. Hey animation fans, can I say something about the whole bean mouth thing? That shape became popular within the animation studios. They do the actual lip sync and the super hard work of drawing many of these shows by hand. They set the mouth shape style a lot of the time. For example, most of Star was hand-drawn on paper with real inking. The animation studio set the mouth shape style on many of the shows to make them more doable. Can't really figure out why this has become a bad thing to some people. So yeah, Daron's referring to the vendor studios. For those out of the loop, a lot of big studios like Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and Disney storyboard their cartoons in-house, creating out the backgrounds, model sheets, and assets, and then they ship it over to another studio who proceeds to do the actual animation and sending it back to the main studio when it's done. It sounds like the bean mouth became a trick akin to giving characters 4 fingers instead of 5 to speed up the process. Now, mouth charts, as the name implies, lays out how characters should look when pronouncing certain letters and words. And based off what Daron's saying, it sounds like the mouth charts actually began to influence the character designs. That it's easier to reuse mouth charts and place said mouths on the characters if they have simpler faces to slap them on. And the bean shape gives them a larger canvas to work with. More varied character designs may demand special mouth charts, so they found it wise to reserve them for characters who don't appear as often. Now, some productions do produce their own mouth charts as opposed to the vendor studios, but from Daron's experience, Star Vs. started at Mercury Filmworks and they did their own charts. Personally, I get it. Now, I'm not saying this means I'm throwing everything I said about wanting variety out of the window. I just get why they took this route. I know people who despise bean mouth are going to watch this video and take anything that's not criticism as defending or ass-kissing, but we should be able to understand why decisions were made while still wanting better for the medium. I think it's a pretty rational take to think, I accept this as the truth and I still don't like how it looks. Animation studios work their asses off making these silly drawings move. There's multiple teams, of course, but they still tend to have a huge workload, especially back in the mid-2010s. If they gotta cut corners so that all these shows can be delivered on time without making them look as stiff as a board, then so be it. Daron talking about this also made me realize that a lot of bean mouth shows are animated on paper, hand-drawn frame by frame, whereas a lot of rig shows of the era got away with more diverse character designs and styles. Obviously, that doesn't apply to everything. After all, Star was a show that was half animated on paper and half rigged, but keep this in mind when you're watching cartoons from that era. Is it Beanie? Yeah. Is it animated on paper? Yeah. Then maybe it was to accommodate the vendor studios. Daron also emphasized that these cartoons are being made for companies, which means the artists have to work with what they got, replying to someone with, "Yeah, I would say I was making a show for Disney. Disney has a relationship with certain animation studios. Those studios are trained to do animation in a certain way. You can push and pull things, but if shows kind of look alike in some ways, like mouth shapes, that's why." And to be clear, our animation studios did a fantastic job. Lots of very talented, passionate people made the show. I was always so impressed. Like the episode where Star is swimming in the toffee goo? So well animated. Preach, Daron, preach. Dem Rough Draft episodes looked good. At the end of the day, this is a relationship where a network or streaming service needs stuff to fill their catalog, so they give artists the resources to make it for them. Star was a show Daron made for Disney. They were the ones who footed the bill. They set the budget. So if Beam-Up is what works best for Disney, then that's that. When criticized for the American animation industry's dependency on outsourcing and how it's impacted creative decisions, a problem that a sole showrunner can't fix, Daron gave a simple reality check regarding these circumstances. Well, I didn't pay for the show, did I? Anyone is welcome to make anything on their own in any way that they want. But when you sell a show to a company and they are paying for it, you need to stay in a budget. And today, it's so hard to get anything made at all. No system is perfect. I'm very proud of the show. The humor and stories are very original. Everyone worked hard. I know it's not for everyone, and that's alright. I just think the Beam-Out thing is a little misguided sometimes. I of course wish TV animation had more budget and time. We move so quick in TV. Features have the opposite problem. They tinker with every detail for so long, they often lose something. I think TV needs more time and features less. I like variety as well. The budgets for TV are much smaller compared to, say, a feature. But I quite like how my show turned out. We did do a lot of special mouth shapes for monsters, but that involved a special mouth chart for each of those characters. So yeah, just a little bit of interesting animation insight that I wanted to share. But also, let's not kid ourselves. Beam-Up is also a trend in the sense that a lot of studios or productions or higher-ups might have seen it become common and followed suit simply because they see it working for other places. It kind of reminds me of the simplified art styles we're seeing more in anime. Dragon Ball Super Broly, Chainsaw Man Reze, Dandadan, the list goes on. It seems to be great for animators, as they can reserve detailed shots for when they really want to emphasize a moment, while also being able to produce more fluid animations. But it also just looks really cool. I prefer this over a shit ton of shadows and compositing. Like that glossy look that Dragon Ball Super show had, not a fan. If I had it my way, the series would look like Broly forever. But that said, I'm sure if this style becomes too prominent, people will get tired of it. But if anything, I think there's so much anime being made in a variety of genres that we won't have to run into the lack of visual variety anytime soon. But I'm just yapping, you get the idea. The Beam-Up was for efficiency, it was popularized by overseas studios, and it just makes their jobs easier. Is that a symptom of a broken system? Maybe, probably, yes! But I definitely think we're moving out of the Beam-Up age for different reasons. There's less shows being made, there's less shows being animated on paper, cartoons other than comedies are on the rise, with unique art styles that suit their vibe, and we're getting more adult animation. The Beam-Up trend is mainly found in kids shows. While adult animation can have a quote, ugly problem, I think they're still doing God's work when it comes to visual variety in the Western scene. But with that said, I want to know what you guys think. How do you feel about the Beam-Up style in the Big 26? Let's get a dialogue going in the comments down below, and keep the convo rolling over on Twitter and Instagram at AllSharkVox and at Roundtable Vids. If you enjoyed this video, please sure to like and subscribe to the Roundtable with notifications on so you never miss a video. Shout out to our patrons, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace!